What's up, Top Shelf Nation? Super glad to be back with you guys again this week. I know we took last week off. I had a lot of things going on and work's been crazy lately. But 1 week off isn't gonna kill us. I also want to put a little bit of extra thought into this week's topic because it's an important topic to me and something that I care deeply about and something that, frankly, I put a lot of thought into over the last few years. So today we're gonna be talking about culture. Culture in itself is really more of an ecosystem, or it's the pulse of an establishment or an organization, and there's so many different factors that go into culture that we're not just going to focus on culture from a bartender's perspective or the impact a bartender has on it, but kind of how the whole ecosystem works and how each person has an impact in that organization to make change in culture and really maintain a good, positive culture within the organization, within your establishment as well. This is kind of a funny topic for me because most of what I've learned through experience. As I've said before, you know, I worked in restaurants, I worked in bars for 13 years now, managing different bars and restaurants. So I've worked with a lot of different teams, met a lot of different people over the years. The reason it's funny because I've worked with so many people, and by learning from doing and learning from experience, a lot of the people that I worked with early in my career, they're going to be like, God, he's such a fucking dick, dude. Like, and I was. I'll be the first one to admit, like, in retrospect, I was probably the biggest asshole that some of these people have ever met. Totally different guy now than I was that 15 years ago when I met some of these people. But the more experience that I got, the more people I worked with, and the more people I worked around, I kind of started playing with different approaches that I think started to work a little bit more effectively. And it created a better, more fun atmosphere rather than people just on their toes every single day around me because I was the biggest dick in the building. There's a lot that I have learned over the years, and I put a lot of time and thought into this, and I kind of want to share some of my experiences with culture. So something that it took a long time for me to figure out was, you know, came in when I started managing. I was 21 years old when I was managing bars, so it was literally like the day that I was legally allowed to start managing bars is when I started managing bars. So when you got a kid that's in there 21, thinks he's hot shit and knows what he's talking about, really doesn't know a damn thing until, honestly, when I was like 31 is when I started to really figure shit out. But one of the things I learned over those 10 to 13 years was the higher up in management I went, the higher up in the totem pole I went, the more of an impact I had on culture. And the reason I say that is because, as the low man on the totem pole in management, the rookie manager, only so much of what I say or what I do is going to have an impact or have weight with the management team. But as I started to become more experienced and I became a veteran in the management staff, or even when I became a general manager, what I had to say and what I did had a lot more weight with the people around me. Now, when you get into a general manager position, everything that you do is going to affect the managers underneath you, your direct reports, because they're looking to you as a leader and for guidance. So if you ever heard that term, shit rolls downhill, like that's a real thing. It wasn't until a few years of being a general manager that I started to realize that my attitude, my actions, my emotions, anything from the tone of my voice to my body language really had an impact on everybody around me, not just the managers around me, but all the staff that I worked with as well. Now, this is coming from a management perspective, and so the reason I bring this up is because I feel that managers in general have the greatest responsibility for cultivating a positive culture in the restaurant and maintaining it. Some of these places that we work, they have such a high turnover rate that very rarely do you get to keep the same exact staff for extended periods of time. When that does happen, it makes it a piece of cake to be able to maintain culture. But anytime that you bring in a new person and a new personality, it's going to have an impact on that culture. And it's going to be up to the managers to really manage how that person impacts the culture. So reinforcing the positive behaviors is something that the managers really need to get better at doing. Now, I can sympathize with managers not being good at that because it's in a manager's DNA to look for problems and look for things that are wrong and try to find solutions to fix them. But we need to change that mindset and change that perspective and change that approach to where we're reinforcing more positive behaviors. Now, it's not just new staff members that managers need to be responsible for, but really more importantly, it's going to be those staff members that have been around for a long time, those cornerstone, high-performing staff members that we rely on every single day, and frankly that we take for granted. Those are the ones that really probably have the greatest impact with the staff as far as the culture with the staff, the attitude as the staff as a single organism. So, and what I mean by that, if you have a bartender that's been around for 5 years and they're the lead bartender, they're there all the time, 20, 30, 40 hours a week. We as managers need to remember that there's a reason that we chose them for that position. There's a reason that they've been there as long as they have, and they've earned their spot to be where they are today. So we need to trust them. We're not going to treat this bartender that's been there for 5 years the same way that we treat maybe a new host or a new waiter that's been there for 5 months or even 5 weeks. There has to be a different approach to managing some of those people that we're closest with and that we trust the most. As a manager, we should be trusting those bartenders to make more micro decisions, rely on them even to make more micro decisions. I can't remember how many different teams I've worked with that, those bartenders I've trusted so much that, I will go to them and I'll ask them, hey, do you think we're okay to cut the floor? More often than not, they've been there long enough and they know the staff better than anyone else, and they work closer to the staff than anyone else, that they're able to see the strengths and the weaknesses of everybody around them. Managers need to be trusting their bar staff to make more of those micro decisions on a shift-to-shift or even hour-to-hour basis. On a more macro scale, as managers, we should be including our bartenders in some of the bigger decision making as well, not letting them have the final decision in all aspects of our organization, but including them and really showing appreciation to their skills, their talent, their ability, and their insight. A good example of that, when I was managing a bar, when was this? This was probably 6 years ago. We would swap out the beers that we had on tap quite often, actually. And I was this is right in the big boom of craft beers. So it was always about local craft beers, local breweries, and the newest beer on the market. So we had probably 2 to 3 tap handles that we rotated out fairly frequently. And what I would do is I would talk to the bartenders about, what are your guests looking for? What do you think is out there? What do you think that we should get? And I would maybe come at them with 5 or 6 different options and say, hey, here's some choices. What do you think would be best to bring in on tap? Same thing with wine, same thing with liquor, any bottles that we need to carry. Trust your bartenders to know that they probably know more about the industry than you do as managers because they're closer to the people. The people that are closest to the end consumers, which are our guests, they're going to have the best insight and the most knowledge of what our guests are looking for. They may not need to make the final decision because there are economic factors that need to be considered that the manager is going to have better insight, whether that's pricing, margin, costs, and things of that nature, availability. Those are all things that need to be considered as well. But as far as what's desirable and what do guests want, your bartenders are going to be people to go for that. This isn't just a tactic to deciding what product to have on hand, but bartenders start to appreciate that kind of stuff. The staff members like knowing that their opinion is valued. They like to know that their managers trust them and appreciate them on more than just a clocking in and clocking out basis. Now, another trap that's frequently fallen into from managers is this need to micromanage all of our staff members, to overmanage our staff members, and try to maximize the greatest efficiency we can out of them. And I say this is a trap because I've fallen into it dozens of times myself. Being aware that there's going to be some downtime in the bar, knowing that that's going to happen, we need to show some restraint and some resistance into trying to maximize every single minute that we can out of that downtime. What I mean by that is don't stand behind your bartender when they don't have any guests or maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 guests at the bar and say, you're slow, go clean this. Give them space to be themselves, especially even if they have 1 guest at the bar. Let them be themselves around that 1 person. If there's no guests at the bar, they should be spending their time trying to figure out how they're going to start bringing guests into the bar. As we talked about in the last episode, it's best to have some sort of consistent cleaning schedule so we're not relying on these dynamic cleaning moments to try to maximize minutes just to give them busy work because we don't like the look of them standing around. We don't want to do that Even more so when they're busy. We don't want to be hovering over their shoulder watching their every move when they have a full bar and they have 1 to 2 dozen people waiting on it for drinks. Nobody likes to be looked at under a microscope or under a magnifying glass under high pressure situations and when they're trying to go. Give them space, back up, and let them do their thing and let them be themselves. Because I guarantee you, if you create a scenario or an environment where they have the space to be themselves and show their own personality, they're going to have a lot more fun, which is going to be more engaging with the guests, and the guests are going to have more fun at the end as well. The last bit of advice that I can give managers is to treat your staff like they're volunteers, because really they are. Bartenders are very highly skilled workers in the industry, and it's not that hard for a bartender to go 5 minutes up the street and get a job at another location. So treat your staff like they're volunteers and give them a reason to want to stay. Make it fun, make it engaging, and make it exciting for them to come to work. Now bartenders, you're not off the hook now, okay? This isn't just about the managers. Bartenders have a huge impact on culture of the restaurant too. Frankly, they have a bigger impact on the culture of the restaurant, whereas the managers have the greater responsibility of maintaining that culture. A little bit ago I talked about how in management I realized that the higher up in the totem pole I went, I started to have a greater impact on the attitude and emotions of the people around me. That same concept applies to bartending, because while they're not climbing the same ladder as managers are, they're climbing the staff ladder. They're going up the totem pole on the staff side. And once you get into bartending in a restaurant, you've reached the pinnacle of that totem pole. Now, all of a sudden, you're on this pedestal and people are looking to you for guidance on how they should be acting, the kind of things that they can get away with, and frankly, how they should be behaving. And really, they're going to model that behavior off of the bartenders, because you're at the spot that everybody wants to get to. So they're looking to you to see what worked for you and how were you successful and how did you get there. So bartenders, here's 4 different ways that you can have a positive impact on culture. Now, the first piece of advice I can give you is to remember your roots. We've all started somewhere in the industry, whether it was hosting or serving, maybe we bar bagged, but we all know what it's like to be worked hard and ran into the ground without any sort of appreciation. As a bartender, we should be cheering those people on. We want to be showing support and showing appreciation to the staff around us, because we know what it's like to be overworked and underappreciated. By showing appreciation and respect to the rest of the staff around you, it's going to make them more willing to do things for you, and it's going to make everybody in a better mood when they come into work as well. As a bartender, we also want to be a mentor to those that are still trying to get to where you are. There's a lot of servers that are still trying to make it to that next step, and there's a lot of hosts that are still trying to move up as well. Recognize those people that are trying to get moved up and where they want to be. If given the opportunity, have those conversations with people and go out of your way to help them get to where they want to be as well. That's only going to make your job easier, because not only are they going to be willing to help you, but they're going to have the skills and the knowledge to be able to help you as well. Now, the next piece of advice I can give you is to develop and protect a 3-dimensional reputation in perpetuity. Let me say it one more time. Develop and protect a 3-dimensional reputation in perpetuity. You're probably wondering, what the hell does he mean by that? So a 3-dimensional reputation is your reputation from your managers, your reputation from your coworkers, and your reputation from your guests. So when I say develop and protect that reputation, you want to consider your reputation from those 3 different perspectives. Now, your reputation with your managers, you want to be that go-to person for them. You want to create a scenario to where you are indispensable to them. You also want to be the bartender that they can trust every single shift. Now, when you start to earn that trust, managers start to get off your back a lot more, and it gives you more freedom to be yourself and do your thing without somebody looking over your shoulder or watching you under a magnifying glass. Now, your reputation with your coworkers. You want to be the bartender that the entire staff speaks very highly about. You want to be the bartender that every single one of them love to clock in and see you behind the bar, and you're the one that they want to work with. That doesn't mean just get along with them on a personal level, but be a high-performing bartender that they can rely on. You want to earn their cosign, because you never know when you're going to need them to vouch for you down the road. 5 years later, maybe they're a manager at a different establishment, or maybe they're a bartender somewhere else and you're trying to get a job there. You want to earn that reputation with them now, because 5 years later, you may need them to vouch for you or cosign for you if you're trying to get a job somewhere else. And lastly is our reputation with our guests. Be that bartender that every guest has been looking for. And you know better than anybody else that every guest has to be treated differently because they're all looking for different things. But that's what makes you good at what you do, is your ability to read that guest, know what they want, and get along with them and deliver. You want to make sure every single day that you're going out of your way to earn their love, earn their respect, and earn their attention, because that's how you earn their business and get them to come back. Number 3, remember that you're a leader with the staff. So you have to be leading by example and you have to walk the walk. As I mentioned before, you're on a stage and the other staff members are going to be looking up to you, and they're going to be looking at how you behave, and they're going to model their behavior after you. So make sure you're exemplifying desirable behavior, not bad habits. Remember that you're cloning your own work ethic. So how hard you work is going to show the bartender of tomorrow how hard they should be working to get there. Make sure that you're breeding accountability as well. If you're making mistakes, don't deflect and blame it on anyone else. Own your mistakes. And treat the bar like it's yours. Treat the guests like they're yours. Go out of your way to even treat the staff like they're yours. And number 4, do not stop putting in the effort. I've seen way too many times where bartenders work for years to finally get into that position, and once they get there, they feel like they've made it, and that's when they stop trying. Once they stop trying, that's when the results stop altogether. They go out of their way to take care of their guests when they're hosts, when they're servers, but they think that once they make it to the bartending position, it should just come easy at that point. It doesn't. That's where you need to start putting in the work to keep your business and to keep your guests. That's where too many bartenders start to lose what makes them special and what got them there in the first place. Remember, every single day you have to go into that bar earning your spot, earning your role, and earning your position on that team. It's just like any sport. If you take baseball, for example, a kid can work his entire life to make it to the major leagues, but they don't stop working once they got there. They have to work even harder to maintain their spot on that team, to maintain their position and earn a role to be able to play. So every day you come in, earn your spot, earn your role, and earn your position behind the bar. So a bit of a recap as to why culture is important. Culture, again, is the pulse of the organization and the people within that organization. People that enjoy coming to work and doing what they do, guests notice that kind of stuff. So culture starts to tie into business results, because a positive culture is going to attract a better staff and a happier staff, which is going to attract customers. Not just new customers, but repeat customers more frequently as well. That's how bartenders start to build up regulars. That's how servers start to build up regulars. And even more importantly, culture ties in with brand, because your brand is your reputation. So if you have a reputation as a business, if you have a reputation of being a shitty place to work, then you're not going to attract better staff, and you're going to have a higher turnover rate, which means less regulars and less people coming in, less traffic. So as a bar manager or a bar owner, you want to work on being that place that everybody wants to work for. So maintaining and cultivating that positive culture is going to help you achieve that. Having that higher energy and that positive culture is going to drive traffic and drive guests. As a bartender, you want to be that bartender that everybody wants to hire, that bars are just fighting over to hire you. You want to be that bartender that every staff everywhere you go loves to work with, and be that bartender that every guest everywhere you go wants to come in and visit. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Top Shelf Talk as we talk about culture. Guys, I can't stress this enough, that how important culture is. You can suck at everything else, but if you have a high energy, positive culture in your organization and at your establishment, you have a solid foundation to build a winning team and a winning business. So before we leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. Give me a quick follow, turn on your alerts, leave some comments below on some of the things that you liked and you learned here today as well. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Peace out, Top Shelf Nation.